If you've seen The Incredibles 2, then that means you're now obsessed with The Incredibles 3. So to feed your new obsession, here are my top 5 ideas for what Pixar and Brad Bird should do in the third entry, which hopefully doesn't take another 14 years to make. All right, so, of course, spoilers beware. Naturally. So Elastigirl, should it really be maybe Elastiwoman at this point? But anyway, Elastigirl, Mr. Incredible, and Frozone fought, or at least joined forces with DevTech, so that the next generation of supers could operate out in the open. And at the end of The Incredibles 2, they won the day. So that makes number 1. Let's see that big, bright, beautiful tomorrow. Disney fans totally get that reference. All right, so anyway, yes, I'm talking time jump, right? Brad Bird got away with continuing the initial story one time. I don't think he'll be able to do it again. Never say never, of course. Incredibles 2 is way better than I ever expected it to be, and my expectations were quite high. But come on, give us a time jump already. Because so far in this world, we've only seen the supers in hiding. Let's see a world where supers flourish. And that will take a couple of years to achieve. I'm not talking just like 1 or 2 months after, the new law was put into effect. And maybe, I love this idea. Maybe some supers have even chosen not to have secret identities anymore. Maybe that's the new thing. And perhaps one of the now older Par kids is thinking of doing the same. How would their parents feel about that? Not only because it's dangerous, but it would be like a generational thing. I think it would be fabulous. All right, so number 2, speaking of older Par kids, they already said in The Incredibles 2 that while some super babies do exhibit more than one power, this many powers is still unusual. So let's get that older Jack Jack, who at least can talk, and still has more than one power. And does that make him the only super who has multiple powers? Ooh, that would be really interesting. And we have got to keep his close relationship with Auntie Edna Mode, right? Which would mean that he would be absolutely fabulous, darling, right? I mean, what would co-parenting by Pixar's own Auntie Mame do to this child? I can't wait to see it. And also, how do Helen and Bob feel about sharing their kid with Edna Mode, right? It was Bob's idea to take her over there in a moment of desperation, but they've bonded. Oh, it was so great. One of the best scenes in the sequel. All right, so number 3, somebody in this family needs to develop some detective skills because Helen and Bob's naivete is a little embarrassing at this point. I mean, they really just react. They react well, but they're not out ahead of the crimes. I mean, they're reduced to listening to police scanners, right? That's not as effective as a super could be. And since Dash is not only desperately in need of a new B storyline, and is already taken with Batman, right? Of course, quoting him in the sequel, why not have him become the detective? I think that would be great. I bet his mind works real fast when he's interested in the subject matter. Maybe he's not so good at his subjects at school, but he really excels when it comes to crime solving. Oh, I think that would be fabulous. And he's very enthusiastic. Let's channel that enthusiasm and all that energy in a positive direction. All right, I feel like his supervisor. Would there be a super school if supers are out in the open? Maybe you could continue just a few years later. Maybe that would work as well. All right, so that's like 3.5 maybe. That fits in there somewhere. All right, so number 4. We've had 2 main villains now that are non-supers who are obsessed with supers, either pro or con, right? How about a main villain who's a super and uses their powers for evil, especially in a world where supers are free? Some will eventually feel free to be bad, to be a little too free, right? I mean, it's the typical, why should we answer to those who are less powerful than us routine. We've seen it before, but I think Brad Bird has an excellent track record at this point of taking tropes, let's say tropes, stereotypes is negative, tropes in the superhero genre and putting a really unique twist on them. All right, so finally, number 5, I'm sure you know what this is. We have to see Mrs. Frozone already. And I do not want her to look like this. Why? Well, with all due respect, I mean, this character certainly seems very likable and spunky, but women of color need to stop being portrayed for comedic effect. I think we really need a female character of color on the level of Helen, powerful and beautiful. Also that makes me wonder, is Mrs. Frozone a super, right? And if she's not a super, and if she was, why isn't she active anymore? Why is Frozone got to do all this stuff himself? But if she's not a super, and I really like this, I came up with this during my spoiler review, what if she could then give relationship advice to what it's like to be in a relationship with a super, to say, Tony, who's in a serious relationship with Violet, or they're engaged or just married? I think that would be great, and a really good reason to finally bring her character into the movie fully. Oh, I would love it. See, we have to have a third entry. So what would you like to see in a third Incredibles movie? Be sure to share your thoughts down below, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.